Good day, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to Conk's Corner with me, John Voth, and Dexter. His stomach just growled so much. This is the show where I eat straight up garbage for an hour. Just eat it. But really, I'm reading Harry Potter for the first time every single day for 5-6 months now. I'm enjoying the ride. Please don't spoil anything in the comments or in the chat below because I want to experience it for the first time. So last time, when we read, we left off, they went to Diagon Alley, or at least to the area where Diagon Alley is as a group, to buy school supplies to get ready. They just received their OWL results. They all did pretty well. If I was taking the OWL results, I'd probably have to repeat the year. That's the reality of what happened. Yeah, we've been reading for a long time, and I just want to say, let's consciously take an hour now to just step aside from anything that's bugging you, anything that's creating frustration for you, for myself too, just to calm down, to have fun, to laugh, and to connect with each other. I would love to do that. Nothing's happening to me. I'm just offering that up. Okay, let's get started, shall we? I hope you all had a good weekend. Wham, bam, bam. And also want to let you know that tomorrow I will not be reading tomorrow, but I will be going longer today. Okay, so I will make it up to you. All right, I get my special wand that was gifted upon me. So very wrong. Something was. All right, so we're on page. Well, this is now on a Kindle, so I don't know if pages even matter anymore. So we'll just get started. They're just launching into. Oh, right. Both groups separated. So Hagrid is walking with Ron, Hermione, and Harry together to get their supplies, and the rest of the family walked off with Mr. and Mrs. Weasley to get the other supplies. Okay. Don't fret. They'll be fine with me, Molly, said Hagrid soothingly, waving an airy hand the size of a dustbin lid. Already starting off with a great description. Dustbin lid. But allowed the separation, scurrying off towards Flourish and Blots with her husband, and, Mrs. Weasley did not look entirely convinced, but allowed the separation, scurrying off towards Flourish and Blots with her husband and Ginny, while Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Hagrid set off for Madame Malkin's. Harry noticed that many of the people who passed them had the same harried, anxious look as Mrs. Weasley, and that nobody was stopping to talk anymore. The shoppers stayed together in their own tightly knit groups, moving intently about their business. Nobody seemed to be shopping alone. So there's fear spread throughout the nation. Not unlike things that are happening now. Might be a bit of a squeeze in there with all of us, said Hagrid, stopping outside Madame Malkin's and bending down to peer through the window. I'll stand guard outside, all right? I'm not sure if we met Madame Malkin. Maybe we have. I cannot completely remember. So just if we have, remind me who she was. But if we haven't, please give me some adjectives for her voice. So Harry, Ron, and Hermione entered the little shop together. It appeared at first glance to be empty, but no sooner had the door swung shut behind them than they heard a familiar voice issuing from behind a rack of dress robes in spangled green and blue. Yep, first book, Lady Who Sells the Robes. Oh, right. I kind of forget. I forget what her... you need to stop getting into forehead accidents, John. I guess so. Does anybody in the house have clickers? Because you really need a haircut. I know, I'm going on Wednesday. I'm getting a haircut on Wednesday. Thanks, Deborah. Thanks for the unrequited advice about my hair. Hagrid doing his part in social distancing. Yes, totally. Okay, if you want to give me some adjectives for her, I completely forget this character. It's been 5 books ago. She has not popped up. I haven't used this voice. I can't remember her at all, to be honest. So, if you have any adjectives for her, shoot them at my face. A familiar voice. Now, dear. Oh, there's another character, a teenage boy. Okay, so if you're writing in the comments, random store saleswoman. All right, there's also a different character, a boy. Give you some adjectives for her. Just business-like. Like, been known to poke a wiggly kid with a pin. Okay. Not a child, in case you haven't noticed, Mother. I'm perfectly capable of doing my shopping alone. I don't know who that is. There was a clucking noise. and a voice Harry recognized as that of Madame Malkin said,
"Now, dear, your mother's quite right. None of us is... your mother's quite right. None of us is supposed to go wandering around on our own anymore. It's nothing to do with being a child."
"Watch where you're sticking that pin, will you?" A teenage boy with a pale, pointed face and white blonde hair appeared from behind a rack wearing a handsome set of dark green robes that glittered with pins around the hem and the edges of the sleeves. He strode to the mirror and, examining himself, it was a few moments before he noticed Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Oh, Draco Malfoy. Ron and Hermione reflected over his shoulder. His light gray eyes narrowed. "If you're wondering what the smell is, Mother, a mudblood just walked in," said Draco Malfoy. There he is. There he is. Let's get a... I need to do a different boo now because Umbridge is out of the picture. But
boo! Go on, get out of here!
We got Mark going.
You stink! Get off the stage!
More like Dumbridge.
Draco, more like... Nakado. Madame Malkin.
"I don't think there's any need for language like that,"
said Madame Malkin, scurrying out from behind the clothes rack, holding a tape measure and a wand.
"And I don't want wands drawn in my shop either,"
she added hastily, for a glance towards the door had shown her Harry and Ron both standing there with their wands out and pointing at Malfoy. That's a bit of a... Stanko, Draco, more like Stanko. Snako works. Lamo, okay, that's a good one. Flaco, Lamo. Faco, Lamo, yeah. Hermione, who was standing slightly behind them, whispered,
"No, don't. Honestly, it's not worth it."
Yeah. Like you'd dare to do magic out of school, sneered Malfoy. "Who blacked your eye, Granger? I want to send them flowers."
"That's quite enough,"
said Madame Malkin sharply, looking over her shoulder for support.
"Madam, please."
Narcissa Malfoy strolled up from behind the clothes rack.
"Put those away."
Her voice. I gotta get into the habit of practicing the voice beforehand. That's true.
"Put those away,"
she said coldly.
"Put those away,"
she said coldly to Harry and Ron.
"If you attack my son again, I shall ensure that is the last thing you ever do."
"Really?" said Harry, taking a step forwards and gazing into the smoothly arrogant face that, for all its pallor, still resembled her sister's. He was as tall as she was now, going to get a few Death Eater pals to do us in, are you? Madame Malkin squealed and clutched at her heart.
"Really? You shouldn't accuse..." Dangerous thing to say. "Wands away, please."
But Harry did not lower his wand. Narcissa Malfoy smiled unpleasantly. This is a better Narcissa than before. Keep this one, please. Sure. Madame Malkin squealed. Oh, no, okay. But Harry did not lower his wand. Narcissa Malfoy smiled unpleasantly.
"I see that being Dumbledore's favorite has given you a false sense of security, Harry Potter. But Dumbledore won't always be there to protect you."
Harry looked mockingly all around the shop. How? Look at that. He's not here now. So why not have a go? They might be able to find you a double cell in Azkaban with your loser of a husband. Woo-hoo-hoo! Whoa! Harry giving it. Malfoy made an angry movement towards Harry, but stumbled over his overlong robe. Ron laughed loudly. "Don't you dare talk to my mother like that, Potter!" Malfoy snarled.
"It's all right, Draco,"
said Narcissa, restraining him with her thin white fingers upon his shoulder.
"I expect Potter will be reunited with dear Sirius before I'm reunited with Lucius."
Harry raised his wand higher.
"Harry, no!"
moaned Hermione, grabbing his arm and attempting to push it down by his side.
"Think! You mustn't! You'll be in such trouble!"
Madame Malkin dithered for a moment on the spot, then seemed to decide to act as though nothing was happening in the hope that it wouldn't. She bent towards Malfoy, who was still glaring at Harry.
"Oh, I think this left sleeve could come up a little bit more, dear. Let me just..."
"Ouch!" bellowed Malfoy, slapping her hand away. "Watch where you're putting your pins, woman! Whew. Mother, I don't think I want these anymore. He pulled the robes over his head and threw them onto the floor at Madame Malkin's feet.
You're right, Draco,
said Narcissa, with a contemptuous glance at Hermione.
Now I know the kind of scum that shops here. We'll do better at Twilfit and Tattings.
Twilfit and Tattings. I like that. Harry doesn't care. He fought Death Eaters. Yeah, totally. And with that, the pair of them strode out of the shop, Malfoy taking care to bang as hard as he could into Ron on the way out.
Well, really?
Said Madame Malkin, snatching up the fallen robes and moving the tip of her wand over them like a vacuum cleaner, so that it removed the dust. She was distracted all through the fitting of Ron and Harry's new robes, tried to sell Hermione's wizard's dress robes instead of witches. Tried to sell Hermione wizard's dress robes instead of witches. And when she finally bowed them out of the shop, it was with an air of being glad to see the back of them. Got everything? Got everything? Asked Hagrid brightly when they reappeared at his side. Just about, said Harry. Did you see the Malfoys? Yep, said Hagrid, unconcerned. But they wouldn't dare make trouble in the middle of Diagon Alley, Harry. Don't worry about them. Harry, Ron, and Hermione exchanged looks. Before they could disabuse Hagrid of this comfortable notion, Mr. and Mrs. Weasley and Ginny appeared, all clutching heavy packages of books.
Everyone all right?
Said Mrs. Weasley.
Got your robes? Right, then. We can pop in at the apothecary and Elops on the way to Fred and George's. Stick close now.
Neither Harry nor Ron bought any ingredients at the apothecary. Oh, that word. Seeing that they were no longer studying potions, but both bought large boxes of owl nuts for Hedwig and Pigwidgeon at Elop's Owl Emporium. Eh? Then, with Mrs. Weasley checking her watch every minute or so, they headed further along the streets in search of Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, the joke shop run by Fred and George. I'm excited to see this shop. I'm excited to see what they've done with the thing. They've come to their full purpose, to the purpose of their lives. Let's see what they've done with this. The books would be so different if every time Hermione said, Harry, no, he actually listened. That's very true. Harry just listens to the rules of improvisation, say yes to everything. That's very true, too. There was one time I suggested apothecary as a location when John was doing improv, and he kept saying acopothecary, and I still hear it that way. Well, it's one of those difficult words. Yeah. Important nobody's mom is here! Yes! Yes!
We really haven't got too long,
Mrs. Weasley said. Oh, I need some water after that.
So we'll just have a quick look around and then back to the car. We must be close. It's number 92, 94.
Whoa, said Ron, stopping in his tracks. Set against the dull, poster-muffled shop fronts around them, Fred and George's windows hit the eye like a firework display. Casual passers-by were looking back over their shoulders at the windows, and a few rather stunned-looking people had actually come to a halt, transfixed. The left-hand window was dazzlingly full of an assortment of goods that revolved, popped, flashed, bounced, and shrieked. Harry's eyes began to water just looking at it. The right-hand window was covered with a gigantic poster, purple like those of the Ministry, but emblazoned with flashing yellow letters. Why are you worrying about you-know-who? You should be worrying about you-know-poo. I feel like such a kindred spirit to these boys. The constipation sensation that's gripping the nation. Oh, they're awesome. Toilet time.
When you gotta go, it's toilet time. It's toilet time.
Harry started to laugh. He heard a weak sort of moan beside him and looked round to see Mrs. Weasley gazing dumbfounded at the poster. Her lips moved, silently mouthing the name. You know Pooh?
They'll be murdered in their beds,
she whispered. Oh, no, she whispered. No, they won't, said Ron, who, like Harry, was laughing. This is brilliant! And he and Harry led the way into the shop. It was packed with customers. Harry could not get near the shelves. He stared around, looking up at the boxes piled to the ceiling. Here were the skiving snack boxes that the twins had perfected during their last unfinished year at Hogwarts. Harry noticed that the nosebleed nougat was most popular, with only one battered box left on the shelf. There were bins full of trick wands, the cheapest merely turning into rubber chickens or pairs of pants when waved. The most expensive beating the unwary user around the head and neck. Boxes of quills which came in self-inking, self-checking, and smart answer varieties. A space cleared in the crowd, and Harry pushed his way towards the counter, where a gaggle of delighted 10-year-olds was watching a tiny little wooden man slowly ascending the steps to a real set of gallows, both perched on a box that read, Reusable Hangman. Spell it, or he'll swing. I love this place. I love this place. I love what they've done with the place. It's fantastic. These kids, these boys, these men. They're keeping the spirit alive in their hearts. Jake, I read the section Midnight London Time on release day. If there's one shop in Diagon Alley I want to visit, it's Weasley's Wizard Wheezes. It sounds so awesome. Awesome. Absolutely. I bet the actual place at Hogwarts Center and the theme park over in LA, I bet this is a pretty dope shop to go into. Pattern and Daydream charms. Hermione had managed to squeeze through to a large display near the counter and was reading the information on the back of a box bearing a highly colored picture of a handsome youth and a swooning girl who were standing on the deck of a pirate ship. One simple incantation, and you will enter a top-quality, highly realistic 30-minute daydream, easy to fit into the average school lesson, and virtually undetectable. Side effects include vacant expression and minor drooling. Not for sale to under 16s. You know, said Hermione, looking up at Harry, that really is extraordinary magic. That, Hermione, said a voice behind them. You can have one for free. Oh, it's Fred, okay. A beaming Fred stood behind them. Yay! Wearing a set of magenta robes that clashed magnificently with his flaming hair. How are you, Harry? They shook hands. What's happened to your eye, Hermione? Your punching telescope, she said ruefully. Oh, blimey. Forgot about those, said Fred. Here. He pulled a tub out of his pocket and handed it to her. She unscrewed it gingerly to reveal a thick yellow paste. Just dab it on. That bruise will be gone within the hour, said Fred. We had to find a decent bruise remover. We're testing most of our products on ourselves. I love these guys. I missed them. Hermione looked nervous. It is safe, isn't it? Of course it is, said Fred bracingly. Come on, Harry. I'll give you a tour. Harry left Hermione dabbing her black eye with paste and followed Fred towards the back of the shop, where he saw a stand of card and rope tricks. You would be John in a joke shop. I would be indeed. I love these boys. They are fantastic boys. There we go. Muggle magic tricks, said Fred happily, pointing them out. For freaks like Dad, you know, who love Muggle stuff. It's not a big earner, but we do fairly steady business. They're great novelties. Oh, here's George. Fred's twin shook Harry's hand energetically. Giving him the tour? Come through the back, Harry. That's where you're making the real money. Pocket anything, you, and you're paying more than galleons, he added warningly to a small boy, who hastily whipped his hand out of the tub labeled Edible Dark Marks. They'll make anyone sick. Who would eat a dark mark? George pushed back a curtain beside the Muggle tricks, and Harry saw a darker, less crowded room. The packaging on the products lining these shelves was more subdued. We've just developed this more serious line, said Fred. Funny how it happened.
You wouldn't believe how many people, even people who work at the ministry, can't do a decent shield charm, said George. Of course, they didn't have you teaching them, Harry. That's right. Well, we thought shield hats were a bit of a laugh, you know. Challenge your mate to jinx you while wearing it and watch his face when the jinx just bounces off. But the ministry bought 500 for all of its support staff, and we're still getting massive orders. So we've expanded into a range of shield cloaks, shield gloves. I mean, they wouldn't help much. I'm trying to do both. I don't know if you can distinguish that. Okay, so this is George now. I mean, they wouldn't help much against the unforgivable curses, but for minor to moderate hexes or jinxes, and then we thought we'd get into the whole area of defense against the dark arts because it's such a money spinner, continued George. Oh, this is George now. Continued George enthusiastically. This is cool. Look, instant darkness powder. We're importing it from Peru. Handy if you want to make a quick escape. And our decoy detonators are just walking off the shelves. Look, said Fred, pointing at a number of weird-looking black hooter-type objects. What's a hooter? Objects that were indeed attempting to scurry out of sight. You just drop one surreptitiously, and it'll run off and make a nice loud noise out of sight, giving you a diversion if you need one. Handy, said Harry, impressed. Here, said George, catching a couple and throwing them to Harry. That'll come in useful tomorrow. AKA later, I don't know why I said tomorrow. A young witch with short blonde hair poked her head around the curtain. Harry saw that she too was wearing magenta staff robes. Who is this person? There's a customer out here looking for a joke cauldron, Mr. Weasley and Mr. Weasley, she said. Harry found it very odd to hear Fred and George called Mr. Weasley, but they took it in their stride. Right you are, Verity. I'm coming. In case Verity pops up more often, if she's a one-off, I'll just give her a voice quickly. But if she pops up more often, give me some adjectives, please. Said George promptly. Harry, you help yourself to anything you want, all right? No charge. I can't do that, said Harry, who had already pulled out his money bag to pay for the decoy detonators. You don't pay here, said Fred firmly, waving away Harry's gold. Good. He financed it all. Why should he pay anything? But you give us a start-up loan. We haven't forgotten, said George sternly. Take whatever you like, and just remember to tell people where you got it, if they ask. George swept off through the curtain to help with the customers, and Fred led Harry back into the main part of the shop to find Hermione and Ginny still poring over the patented Daydream charms. Haven't you girls found our special Wonder Witch products yet? Asked Fred. Follow me, ladies. Near the window was an array of violently pink products around which a cluster of excited girls was giggling enthusiastically. Yeah, that's how girls laugh, apparently. Good impression, John. Hermione and Ginny both hung back, looking wary. There you go, said Fred proudly. Best range of love potions you'll find anywhere. Ginny raised an eyebrow skeptically. Do they work? Certainly they work. Up to 24 hours at a time, depending on the weight of the boy in question. Oh, okay, interesting.
John's voice is dry. He needs to moisten with some water.
Okay, a hooter is a serene or a honking horn. A fake. I don't know what that is. Hooter is a horn. Okay, gotcha. Apparently girls laugh like house elves. Yeah, nailed it, huh? I nailed it!
And the attractiveness of the girl, said George, reappearing suddenly at their side. But we're not selling them to our sister, he added. But we're not selling them to our sister, he added, becoming suddenly stern. Not when she's already got about 5 boys on the go from what we've...
Whatever you've heard from Ron is a big fat lie, said Ginny calmly, leaning forward to take a small pink pot off the shelf. What's this?
Guaranteed 10-second pimple vanisher, said Fred. Excellent on everything from boils to blackheads, but don't change the subject. Are you, or are you not, currently going out with a boy called Dean Thomas?
Yes, I am, said Ginny. And last time I looked, he was definitely one boy, not 5. What are those? She was pointing at a number of round balls of fluff in shades of pink and purple, all rolling around the bottom of a cage and emitting high-pitched squeaks. Okay.
Pygmy puffs, said George. Miniature puff skeins. We can't breed them fast enough. So what about Michael Corner?
Michael Corner! Michael Corner! In the American version of the book, it says horn-type objects. Oh, interesting. Miniature puffskins, pygmy puffs. I dumped him. He was a bad loser, said Ginny, putting a finger through the bars of the cage and watching the pygmy puffs crowd around it. Oh, they're really cute.
They're fairly cuddly, yes, conceded Fred. Well, but you're moving through boyfriends a bit fast, aren't you?
Ginny turned to look at him, her hands on her hips. There was such a Mrs. Weasley-ish glare on her face that Harry was surprised Fred didn't recoil. It's none of your business, and I'll thank you, she added angrily to Ron, who just appeared at George's elbow, laden with merchandise, not to tell tales about me to those two. Not to tell tales about me to these two.
That's 3 galleons, 9 sickles, and a knut,
said Fred, examining the many boxes in Ron's arm.
Cough up. I'm your brother. And that stuff, and that's our stuff you're nicking. 3 galleons, 9 sickles. I'll knock off the knut.
I haven't got 3 galleons, 9 sickles.
Oh, you better put it all back then, and mind you put in the right shelves.
Ron dropped several boxes, swore, and made a rude hand gesture at Fred that was unfortunately spotted by Mrs. Weasley, who had chosen that moment to reappear.
Voice you do that again, or jinx your fingers together? Voice you do that again, I'll jinx your fingers together,
she said sharply. Mum, can I have a pygmy puff? Said Ginny at once. A what? Said Mrs. Weasley wearily. Look, they're so sweet. Mrs. Weasley moved aside to look at the pygmy puffs, and Harry, Ron, and Hermione momentarily had an unimpeded view out of the window. Draco Malfoy was hurrying up the street alone. As he passed Weasley's wizard wheezes, he glanced over his shoulder. Seconds later, he moved beyond the scope of the window, and they lost sight of him. Wonder where his mummy is, said Harry, frowning.
Giving her the slip by the looks of it, said Ron.
Why, though? Said Hermione. Tasha, to be fair, when I hear Hooter, I don't think Horn. Yeah, most of us don't. Harry said nothing. He was thinking too hard. Narcissa Malfoy would not have let her precious son out of her sight willingly. Malfoy must have made a real effort to free himself from her clutches. Harry, knowing and loathing Malfoy, was sure the reason could not be innocent. He glanced around. Mrs. Weasley and Ginny were bending over the pygmy puffs. Mr. Weasley was delightedly examining a pack of Muggle-marked playing cards. Just anything Muggle. On the other side of the glass, Hagrid was standing with his back to them, looking up and down the street. Get under here, quick, said Harry, pulling his invisibility cloak out of his bag. He's going on an adventure. Okay. Oh, I don't know, Harry, said Hermione, looking uncertainly towards Mrs. Weasley. Come on, said Ron. Just so game. They immediately know. Oh, it's adventure time, just like the exact same, just core values since book 1. They are going to go on an adventure. It's going to happen regardless, but every single time, Harry's like, we're doing this. Hermione's saying, it's not a good idea, but I'll go anyway, and I'll give the best advice, and I'll come in a clutch moment, and I'll just knock the crap out of Draco in front of his friends, and Ron's just game for anything. He just kind of like reacts in the moment. He doesn't think ahead. He's like, yeah, let's do it! She hesitated for a second longer, then ducked under the cloak with Harry and Ron. Nobody noticed them vanish. They were all too interested in Fred and George's products. Harry, Ron, and Hermione squeezed their way out of the door as quickly as they could. But by the time they gained the streets, Malfoy had disappeared just as successfully as they had. He was going in that direction, murmured Harry as quietly as possible.
so that the humming Hagrid would not hear them. Come on. They scurried along, peering left and right, through shop windows and doors, until Hermione pointed ahead. "That's him, isn't it?" she whispered. "Turning left?" "Big surprise," whispered Ron. For Malfoy had glanced around and slid into Nocturne Alley and out of sight. "Quick, or we'll lose him," said Harry, speeding up. "Our feet'll be seen," said Hermione anxiously. As the cloak flapped a little around their ankles, it was much more difficult hiding all three of them under it now anyways. Okay. My hair, apparently.
Snip, snip, snip.
Alright, where are we? There we go. "It doesn't matter," said Harry impatiently. "Just hurry." But Nocturne Alley, the side street devoted to the dark arts, looked completely deserted. They peered into windows as they passed, but none of the shops seemed to have any customers at all. Harry supposed it was a bit of a giveaway in these dangerous and suspicious times to buy dark artifacts, or at least to be seen buying them. Hermione gave his arm a hard pinch. "Ouch! Shh, look! He's in there! He's in there!" she breathed in Harry's ear. They had drawn level with the only shop in Nocturne Alley that Harry had ever visited, Borgin and Burke's, which sold a wide variety of sinister objects. There, in the midst of the cases full of skulls and old bottles, let's get a different light going on, shall we? Maybe a little green. It's too bright, huh? What do we got? I'll just do the dark one again. There we go. There, in the midst of the cases full of skulls and old bottles, stood Draco Malfoy with his back to them, just visible beyond the very same large black cabinet in which Harry had once hidden to avoid Malfoy and his father. Judging by the movements of Malfoy's hands, he was talking animatedly. The proprietor of the shop, Mr. Borgin, an oily-haired, stooping man, stood facing Malfoy. He was wearing a curious expression of mingled resentment and fear. "If only we could hear what they're saying," said Hermione. Again, I don't remember. I think they were in Borgin and Burke's at some point. Again, don't remember this character. "We can," said Ron excitedly. "Hang on. Damn!" He dropped a couple more of the boxes he was still clutching. Why is he holding on to these boxes? Put them somewhere. Was still clutching as he fumbled with the largest. "Extendable ears. Look!" "Fantastic," said Hermione. And as Ron unraveled the long, flesh-colored strings and began to feed them towards the bottom of the door. "Oh, I hope the door isn't imperturbable." "No," said Ron gleefully. "Listen." They put their heads together and listened intently to the ends of the strings, through which Malfoy's voice could be heard loud and clear, as though a radio had been turned on. Second book, I think. Okay. Second book. "You know how to fix it." In a tone. Okay, he's
Oily. He's oily. He's an oily. He's very oily. There we go. Very oily. Maybe a bit nasal. There we go. Okay. Possibly,
said Bergen, in a tone that suggested he was unwilling to commit himself.
I'll need to see it, though. Why don't you bring it into the shop?
"I can't," said Malfoy. "It's got to stay put. I just need you to tell me how to do it." Harry saw Borgin lick his lips nervously.
Well, without seeing it, I must say it will be a very difficult job. Perhaps impossible. I couldn't guarantee anything.
"No," said Malfoy, and Harry knew just by his tone that Malfoy was sneering. "Perhaps this will make you more confident." He moved towards Borgin and was blocked from view by the cabinet. Harry, Ron, and Hermione shuffled sideways to try and keep him in sight, but all they could see was Borgin looking very frightened. Borgin voice is good. Okay, great. "Tell anyone," said Malfoy, "and there will be retribution. You know Fenrir Greyback.
He's a family friend. He'll be dropping in from time to time to make sure you're giving the problem your full attention. There will be no need for... I'll decide that, said Malfoy. Well, I'd better be off. And don't forget to keep that one safe. I'll need it. Perhaps you'd like to take it now? No, of course I wouldn't, you stupid little man. How would I look carrying that down the street? Just don't sell it. Of course not, sir. What is it? I wonder what it is. Borgin made a bow as deep as the one Harry had once seen him give Lucius Malfoy. Erica is writing something here about Natalie MacDonald in an early book. That character is built on a real person. I don't know Natalie MacDonald. She was a girl that had cancer and loved Harry Potter books, so she wrote to J.K. about how much she loved him. Before J.K. had answered her letter, she died of cancer. Oh no. So her mother replied instead and told J.K. what happened. To honor the girl which named was Natalie, she wrote the character in her honor. Oh wow. That's really wonderful. Hagrid is based off a big biker dude that she met or overheard talking about his plans. I love that! That's so great! Hi from Indonesia. Hi! Hi, Lovey. Hope you're doing well. And welcome on the stream. Okay, 1 second. Next, where were we? Borgin made a bow as deep as the one Harry had seen him once give Lucius Malfoy. Ooh, the son is becoming the father. Not a word to anyone, Borgin. And that includes my mother. Understand? Naturally. Naturally, murmured Borgin, bowing again. Next moment, the bell over the... Oh, sorry, 1 second. It's telling me something about the stream, and I hope it's not... Is the video working fine for you? Because it's telling me there's something wrong going on, but apparently it's fine. Let me know if this is the video acting weird. Next, all good for me. Video's fine. Okay, great. Good to know. Next moment, the bell over the door tinkled loudly as... Next moment, the bell over the door tinkled loudly as Malfoy stalked out of the shop, looking very pleased with himself. He passed so close to Harry, Ron, and Hermione that they felt the cloak flutter around their knees again. Inside the shop, Borgin remained frozen. His unctuous smile, unctuous, what a word, smile had vanished. He looked worried. What was that about? Whispered Ron, reeling in the extendable ears. Dunno, said Harry, thinking. Said Harry, thinking hard. He wants something mended, and he wants to reserve something in there. Could you see what he pointed at them? At when he said that one? No, it was behind that cabinet. You two stay here, whispered Hermione. What are you? But Hermione had already... Yeah, Hermione! But Hermione had already ducked out from under the cloak. She checked her hair in the reflection in the glass, then marched into the shop. So much sass. Setting the bell tinkling again. Ron hastily fed the extendable ears back under the door and passed one of the strings to Harry. Hello. Horrible morning, isn't it? Hermione said brightly to Borgin, who did not answer but cast her a suspicious look. Humming cheerily, Hermione strolled through the jumble of objects on display. Is this necklace for sale? She asked, pausing beside a glass-fronted case. If you've got 1,500 galleons, said Borgin coldly. Oh, no, I haven't got quite that much, said Hermione, walking on. And what about this lovely, skull? 16 galleons. So it's for sale, then? It isn't being kept for anyone? That's so obvious. Come on, Hermione, you can know better than that. Borgin squinted at her. Harry had the nasty feeling he knew exactly what Hermione was up to. Apparently Hermione felt she had been rumbled, too, because she suddenly threw caution to the winds. Hermione can't be the smartest every time. Yeah, that's true. That is true. The thing is that, boy who was in here just now, Draco Malfoy, well, he's a friend of mine, and I want to get him a birthday present, but if he's already reserved anything, I obviously don't want to get him the same thing, so...
It was a pretty lame story in Harry's opinion, and apparently Borgin thought so too. Out! He said sharply. Get out! Hermione did not wait to be asked twice, but hurried to the door with Borgin at her heels. Come on, Hermione. That was not the strongest Hermione moment. As the bell tinkled again, Borgin slammed the door behind her and put up the closed sign. Ah, well, said Ron, throwing the cloak back over Hermione. Worth a try, but you were a bit obvious.
Well, next time you can show me how it's done, Master of Mystery,
she snapped. Ron and Hermione bickered all the way back to Weasley's Wizard Wheezes. Dexter's doing fine, yeah. Oh, by the way, I know I don't have a Dexter cam right now. I'm having some difficulties, but I'm trying to fix it. We should have Dexter cam back by tomorrow. They bickered all the way back to the Wizard Wheezes shop, where they were forced to stop so they could dodge undetected around a very anxious-looking Mrs. Weasley and Hagrid, who had clearly noticed their absence. Once in the shop, Harry whipped off the invisibility cloak, hid it in his bag, and joined in with the other two when they insisted, in answer to Mrs. Weasley's accusations, that they had been in the back room all along, and that you could not have looked properly. End of chapter. Okay, so there's some object... some kind of object that is important. Here's what I think, is that they are, Draco is being groomed. I mean, obviously he's already been, we kind of know that, groomed to take Lucius's place, but he's already, you know, his mom is leading him into the Death Eaters, and Draco's doing his own thing. Because he is not wanting his mom to find out about it. So, none of clues about this object yet to make any premonitions. Because it's just like, that thing. No real clues yet, so I won't make a premonition about that yet. But I'm interested to know what it is. Interested. That one time, the one time Hermione wasn't the smartest witch ever. Yeah, true that. If you had a joke shop, what would you name it? John's Jolly Jinxes. That's what I call it. Chapter 7.
The Slug Club. Ooh, welcome to the Slug Club. Yeah, we just lie around and slime and try to move centimeters at a time in an hour.
Harry spent a lot of the last week of the holidays pondering the meaning of Malfoy's behavior in Nocturne Alley. What disturbed him most was the satisfied look on Malfoy's face as he had left the shop. Nothing that made Malfoy look that happy could be good news. To his slight annoyance, however, neither Ron nor Hermione seemed quite as curious about Malfoy's activities as he was, or at least they seemed to get bored of discussing it after a few days. I've already agreed it was fishy, Harry, said Hermione a little impatiently. She was sitting on the windowsill in Fred and George's room with her feet up on one of the cupboard boxes, and had only grudgingly looked up from her new copy of Advanced Rune Translation. But haven't we agreed there could be a lot of explanations? Maybe he's broken his hand of glory, said Ron vaguely, as he attempted to straighten his broomstick-bent tail twigs. Remember that shriveled up arm Malfoy had? But what about when he said, "Don't forget to keep that one safe," asked Harry for the umpteenth time. That sounded to me like Borgin's got another one of the broken objects, and Malfoy wants both. You reckon? You reckon? Said Ron, now trying to scrape some dirt off his broom handle. Yeah, I do, said Harry. When neither Ron or Hermione answered, he said, Malfoy's father's in Azkaban. Don't you think Malfoy'd like revenge? Ron looked up, blinking. Malfoy? Revenge? What can he do about it? That's my point. I don't know, said Harry, frustrated. But he's up to something, and I think we should take it seriously. His father's a Death Eater, and... Harry broke off, his eyes fixed on the window behind Hermione, his mouth open. A startling thought had just occurred to him. Harry, said Hermione in an anxious voice. What's wrong? Your scar's not hurting again, is it? Asked Ron nervously. He's a Death Eater, said Harry slowly. he's replaced his father as a Death Eater.
What did I say?
There was a silence, then Ron erupted in laughter. Malfoy? He's 16, Harry! You think you-know-who would let Malfoy join? Seems very unlikely, Harry, said Hermione in a repressive sort of voice. What makes you think Madame Malkin's? She didn't touch him, but he yelled and jerked his arm away from her when she went to roll up his sleeve. It was his left arm. He's been branded with a dark mark. Ron and Hermione looked at each other. Well, said Ron, sounding thoroughly unconvinced. Just a screenshot of a quote. Favorites. My favorites are, of course, the twins. Oops, must have missed that. Oh, talking about favorites online. Anika is back with us. Welcome, welcome. I hope I'm saying her name right. Is it Anika or Anika? Yeah, it's probably Anika, right? Welcome. I think he just wanted to get out of there, Harry, said Hermione. He showed Borgin something we couldn't see, Harry pressed on stubbornly. Something that seriously scared Borgin. It was the mark, I know it. He was showing Borgin who he was dealing with. You saw how seriously Borgin took him. Ron and Hermione exchanged another look. I'm not sure, Harry. Yeah, I still don't reckon you-know-who would let Malfoy join. Annoyed but absolutely convinced he was right, Harry snatched up a pile of filthy Quidditch robes and left the room. Mrs. Weasley had been urging them for days not to leave their washing and packing until the last moment. On the landing, he bumped into Ginny, who was returning to her room carrying a pile of freshly laundered clothes. I wouldn't go in the kitchen just now, she warned him. There's a lot of phlegm around. I'll be careful not to slip in it, said Harry. I'll be careful not to slip in it, smiled Harry. Sure enough, when he entered the kitchen, it was to find Fleur sitting at the kitchen table, in full flow about plans for her wedding to Bill, while Mrs. Weasley kept watch over a pile of self-peeling sprouts, looking bad-tempered.
Bill and I have almost decided... Bill and I have almost decided on only 2 bridesmaids. Ginny and Gabrielle will look very sweet together. I am thinking of dressing them in pale gold. In pale gold. Gold! Pink would be, of course, be horrible with Ginny's hair. It's so bad. I love it. Come on.
What French person has ever talked like that? I feel like I'm doing Peter Sellers in Pink Panther. That's kind of what it sounds like.
Oh, Harry,
said Mrs. Weasley loudly, cutting across Fleur's monologue.
Oh, good. I wanted to explain about the security arrangements for the journey to Hogwarts tomorrow. We've got ministry cars again, and there will be aurors waiting at the station.
Is Tonks going to be there? Asked Harry, handing over his Quidditch things. Yeah, it's so accurate. So accurate.
No, I don't think so. She's been stationed somewhere else, from what Arthur said. She has let herself go, that Tonks, mused Fleur, examining her own stunning reflection in the back of a teaspoon. A big mistake, if you ask. Yes, thank you,
said Mrs. Weasley tartly, cutting across Fleur again.
You better get on, Harry. I want the trunks ready tonight, if possible, so we don't have the usual last-minute scramble.
And in fact, their departure the following morning was smoother than usual. The ministry cars glided up to the front of the burrow to find them waiting. Trunks packed, Hermione's cat, Crookshanks, safely enclosed in his traveling basket, and Hedwig, Ron's owl Pigwidgeon, and Ginny's new purple pygmy puff, Arnold, in cages. Can you remind me, what's a pygmy puff again? Because Arnold, I have no idea what this... Ginny got a pygmy puff. What is a pygmy puff? I forget. I hope to catch a Russian character alive if one pops up. Oh yeah, I want another Russian character. My parents were both born in Russia and Ukraine, so I've heard a lot of Russian growing up. Sometimes I get the Russian accent right, sometimes I don't. Peter Sellers does play Fleur in the movie. The Parchment, the Vanishment of the Parchment. He can change Dean Thomas to Russian. I think his voice changes through every book. Yeah, true, I could. It's a pink, small, cute animal. It's a pygmy puff. Miniature puffskin that Ginny... I know, but I don't know what a puffskin is either. Pygmy, the pink and purple balls of fluff. What do they do? What do these little things do? They're just like little pink creatures, that's it? Okay, cool. I guess gotta find little noises for these little things.
Au revoir. Au revoir, Harry.
Said Fleur throatily, kissing him goodbye. Ron hurried forwards, looking hopeful, but Ginny stuck out her foot and Ron fell, sprawling in the dust at Fleur's feet. Furious, red-faced, and dirt-spattered, he hurried into the car without saying goodbye. There was no cheerful Hagrid waiting for them at King's Cross Station. Instead, two grim-faced, bearded Aurors in dark Muggle suits moved forwards the moment the car stopped, and, flanking the party, marched them into the station without speaking.
Quick, through the barrier,
said Mrs. Weasley, who seemed a little flustered by this austere efficiency.
Harry had better go first, with...
She looked inquiringly at one of the Aurors, who nodded briefly, seized Harry's upper arm, and attempted to steer him towards the barrier, between platforms 9 and 10. I can walk, thanks, said Harry irritably, jerking his arm out of the Auror's grip. He pushed his trolley directly at the solid barrier, ignoring his silent companion, and found himself, a second later, standing on platform 9 3/4, where the Scarlet Hogwarts Express stood belching steam over the crowd. Nobody knows what they are, but most people would want one. Like a hamster, but wizardy. Okay, that's helpful. Hermione and the Weasleys joined him within seconds. Without waiting to consult his grim-faced Auror, Harry motioned to Ron and Hermione to follow him up the platform, looking for an empty compartment.
We can't, Harry,
said Hermione, looking apologetic.
Ron and I've got to go to the prefect carriage first, and then patrol the corridors for a bit.
Oh yeah, I forgot, said Harry. Who's saying this? Oh, Mrs. Weasley.
You'd better get straight on the train, all of you. We've only got a few minutes to go,
said Mrs. Weasley, consulting her watch.
Well, have a lovely term, Ron.
Mr. Weasley, can I have a quick word? Said Harry, making up his mind on the spur of the moment.
Of course,
said Mr. Weasley, who looked slightly surprised, but followed Harry out of earshot of the others nevertheless. Harry had thought it through carefully, and come to the conclusion that, if he were to tell anyone, Mr. Weasley would be the right person. Firstly, because he worked at the Ministry, and was therefore in the position to make further investigations. And secondly, because he thought that there was not too much risk of Mr. Weasley exploding with anger. Oh, about their little adventure. Maybe. He could see Mrs. Weasley and the grim-faced Auror casting the pair of them suspicious looks as they moved away. When we were in Diagon Alley, Harry began, but Mr. Weasley forestalled him with a grimace.
Am I about to discover where you, Ron, and Hermione disappeared to while you were supposed to be in the back room of Fred and George's shop?
How did you...
Harry, please. You're talking to the man who raised Fred and George.
Yeah, all right. We weren't in the back room.
Very well, then. Let's hear the worst.
Well, we followed Draco Malfoy. We used my invisibility cloak.
Did you have any particular reason for doing so, or was it a mere whim?
Because I thought Malfoy was up to something, said Harry, disregarding Mr. Weasley's look of mingled exasperation and amusement. He'd given his mother the slip, and I wanted to know why.
Of course you did,
said Mr. Weasley, sounding resigned.
Well, did you find out why?
He went into Borgin and Burke's, said Harry, and started bullying the bloke in there, Borgin, to help him fix something. And he said he wanted Borgin to keep something else for him. He made it sound like it was some kind of thing that needed fixing. Like they were a pair, and Harry took a deep breath. There's something else. We saw Malfoy jump about a mile when Madame Malkin tried to touch his left arm. I think he's been branded with a dark mark. I think he's replaced his father as a Death Eater. Mr. Weasley looked taken aback. After about a moment, he said,
Harry, I doubt whether you know who would allow a 16-year-old...
Does anyone really know what you-know-who would or wouldn't do? Asked Harry angrily. Mr. Weasley, I'm sorry, but isn't it worth investigating? If Malfoy wants something fixing, and he needs to threaten Borgin to get it done, it's probably something dark or dangerous, isn't it?
I doubt it, to be honest, Harry, said Mr. Weasley slowly. You see, when Lucius Malfoy was arrested, we raided his house. We took everything away that might have been dangerous.
I think you missed something, said Harry stubbornly.
Well, maybe,
said Mr. Weasley. But Harry could tell that Mr. Weasley was humoring him. There was a whistle behind them. Nearly everyone had boarded the train and the doors were closing.
You'd better hurry,
said Mr. Weasley, as Mrs. Weasley cried, Hurry, quickly! He hurried forwards, and Mr. and Mrs. Weasley helped him load his trunk on the train. Oh dear, you're coming to us for Christmas. It's all fixed with Dumbledore, so we'll see you quite soon, said Mrs. Weasley through the window, as Harry slammed the door shut behind him and the train began to move. You make sure you look after yourself and... The train was gathering speed. Be good and... She was jogging to keep up now. Stay safe! Harry waved until the train had turned a corner, and Mr. and Mrs. Weasley were lost from view, then turned to see where the others had got to. He supposed Ron and Hermione were cloistered in the prefect carriage, but Ginny was a little way along the corridor, chatting to some friends. He made his way towards her, dragging his trunk. John's voices make the owls that much more appealing. Thank you, Lasmalan. Thank you. Yes, Team John's owl voices. I know there's people who hate him, but boy oh boy, does it give me pleasure to do them then. Anyways. Love Hedwig's voice. Max also. Welcome to the team. Mrs. Weasley is such a lovable mom. She sure is. She sure is. Love her. You do Mrs. Weasley's Dumbledore, Hermione, McGonagall perfect. Thank you, Erica. Lulea. Actually, can you, Lulea, you have a little symbol over your A in your last name. How do you pronounce that and where is it from? Because in Germany we have the umlauts over the O's, U's, and A's, and they change the A's. I'm interested to know how it changes an A. I've grown to love the owl voice. It's time for Team Owl Voice t-shirts. You know them. I love John, hate the owl voice. Okay, let's keep going. We are almost at 7 o'clock. You know what? Let's give the health workers another round of applause. Health workers! I know you're still working hard around the world, and if you're on the chat right now or watching the video, thank you for all you do. Thank you for taking care of people. Thank you for working hard, even though it's at the expense of your own health sometimes, or at the danger of your own health. Thank you so much. You are awesome. You're the best. It's pronounced aw, A-W. Oh, okay, so it'd be Lulea. Lulea? Oh, okay, cool. Okay, let's keep going. People stared shamelessly as he approached. They even pressed their faces against the windows of their compartments to get a good look at him. He had expected an upswing in the amount of gaping and gawping he would have to endure this term, after all the Chosen One rumors and the Daily Prophet. But he did not enjoy the sensation of standing in a very bright spotlight. He tapped Ginny on the shoulder. Fancy trying to find a compartment? I can't, Harry. I said I'd meet Dean, said Ginny brightly. I said I'd meet Dean, said Ginny brightly. See you later. Right, said Harry. He felt a strange twinge of annoyance as she walked away, her long red hair dancing behind her. Come on. We know what's happening. We know what's happening. Her long red hair dancing behind her.
Ginny, I can't get your red hair out of my head. Oh, I'd like to smell that red hair.
Yeah. Harry has turned into a creep, apparently. He had become so used to her presence over the summer that he had almost forgotten that Ginny did not hang around with him, Ron, and Hermione while at school. Then he blinked and looked around. He was surrounded by mesmerized girls. Hi, Harry. Hi, Harry. Okay, wait. He's also, you know, he's gone through puberty too. So I gotta find my grown-up Harry voice, my grown-up Neville voice. Maybe his grown-up Neville voice is like this. Hey, hi, Harry. Hi, Harry. Hi, Harry. Hi, Harry. Hi, Harry. Hi, Harry. There we go. It's a bit more grown up, but still got a bit of Neville in there. Hi, Harry, said a familiar voice from behind him. Neville, said Harry in relief, turning to see a round-faced boy struggling towards him. There you go. Oh, hello, Harry, said a girl with long hair and large, misty eyes, who was just behind Neville. Luna, hi, how are you? Very well, thank you, said Luna. She was clutching a magazine to her chest. She's always reading, that one. Large letters on the front announced that there was a pair of free Spectre Specs inside. The Quibbler still going strong, then? Asked Harry, who felt a certain fondness for the magazine, having given it an exclusive interview the previous year. Oh yes, circulation's well up, said Luna happily. Let's find seats, said Harry, and the three of them set off along the train through hordes of silently staring students. At last they found an empty compartment, and Harry hurried inside gratefully. Hey, buddy! Want to come here? Or just sit there staring at me again for 10 minutes? He's probably going to just do that. Little Dex.
They're even staring at us, said Neville. I don't want to make it sound too much like Mr. Weasley. So I've got to find... There we go. I'm going to find... Neville's voice is down here. Neville's voice. They're even staring at us. They're even staring at us. They're even staring at us. They're even...
I gotta find his grown-up voice. Not grown-up, but, you know, he's gone through it.
They're even staring at us.
Said Neville, indicating himself and Luna.
Because we're with you. Because we're... Oh, there we go.
Ah! I lost it. I had it for a second there.
Because we're with you.
They're staring at you because you were at the ministry too, said Harry, as he hoisted his trunk into the luggage rack. Our little adventure there was all over the Daily Prophet. You must have seen it.
Yes, I thought Gran would be angry about all the publicity, said Neville, but she was really pleased. Says I'm starting to live up to my dad at long last. She brought me a new wand. Look.
He pulled it out and showed it to Harry.
Cherry and unicorn hair, he said proudly. We think it was one of the last Ollivander ever sold. He vanished next day. Oi, come back here, Trevor.
Trevor? Oh, and he dived under the seat to retrieve his toad, as it made one of its frequent bids for freedom. I don't like how Neville speaks in the third person. When does he do that? I don't know. Love John's voice process. Good, I'm glad you enjoy it. Thanks, Esmeralda. There we go. Are we still doing DA meetings this year, Harry? Asked Luna, who was detaching a pair of psychedelic spectacles from the middle of the Quibbler. No point now we've got rid of Umbridge, is there? Said Harry, sitting down. Neville bumped his head against the seat as he emerged from under it. He looked most disappointed.
I like the DA. I learned loads with you.
I enjoyed the meetings too, said Luna serenely. It was like having friends. Oh no, Luna! Oh! That makes me feel so bad for her. Honestly. That makes me feel so... Like, it makes me feel emotional. More emotional than anything else in this book till now, almost. It makes me feel so bad for her. Oh, Luna. No. These are your friends. Oh. This was one of the most uncomfortable things Luna often said, and which made Harry feel a squirming mixture of pity and embarrassment. Before he could respond, however, there was a disturbance outside their compartment door. A group of fourth-year girls was whispering and giggling together on the other side of the glass. "You ask him." "No, you." "I'll do it." And one of them, a bold-looking girl with large dark eyes, a prominent chin, and long black hair, pushed her way through the door. Okay, I see this name... Romilda Vane. I bet she'll keep popping up because she had a name and she just popped up right away. So give me some adjectives for Romilda Vane based on the books, not the movies. Just adjectives. Saddest Luna line. I related so hard to Luna in that moment. Yeah, sweet, beautiful character. Give hugs to Luna. This is why we love her. Luna's wonderful. One of the many reasons. No spoilers, yeah. No spoilers in the adjectives for this character, please. No spoilers. Just adjectives so I know how... And you don't need to compare her to other characters too, because from other, pop culture or anything else, just because I don't want to imitate something else. I want to try and find it within this. She's vain, bold, and daring. Vain, bold, and daring, okay. Very sure of herself teenager. Vain, bold, and daring. Sure of herself. Okay. Maybe sassy. Maybe sassy. Maybe she's like bold and daring and sassy. Maybe she's up here. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Maybe very sure of herself teenager. Sassy. Hi, Harry. Hi, Harry. I'm Romilda. Romilda Vane, she said loudly and confidently. Why don't you join us in our compartment? Oh, no. Why don't you join us in our compartment? You don't have to sit with them. She added in a stage whisper, indicating Neville's bottom, who was sticking out from under the seat again as he groped around for Trevor and Luna, who was now wearing her free spectre specs, which gave her the look of a demented multicolored owl. They're friends of mine, said Harry coldly. Oh, said the girl, looking very surprised. Oh, okay. And she withdrew, sliding the door closed behind her. I don't know, I already like her. Maybe not the character, but I like the way her voice. People expect you to have cooler friends than us. Oh, nah, said Luna, once again displaying her knack for embarrassing honesty. You are cool, said Harry shortly. None of them was at the ministry. They didn't fight with me. That's very right. That's a very nice thing to say, beamed Luna, and she pushed her spectre specs further up her nose and settled down to read the Quibbler. I don't know. I just love this little honest interaction, and I just love it. I love this section. It's great. Love Luna. We didn't face him, though, said Neville, emerging from under the seat with fluff and dust in his hair. Neville, you utter klutz. And resigned-looking Trevor in his hand. You did. You should hear my grand talk about you. That Harry Potter's got more backbone than the whole Ministry of Magic put together. She'd give anything to have you as a grandson. Oh, why is all this so heart-wrenching? Harry laughed uncomfortably and changed the subject to owl results as soon as he could. While Neville recited his grades and wondered aloud whether he would be allowed to take a Transfiguration Newt with only an acceptable, Harry watched him without really listening. Neville's childhood had been blighted by Voldemort just as much as Harry's had, but Neville had no idea how close he had come to having Harry's... Oh, sorry, I'm just trying to... this thing is... It's telling me how much is left in the book, and I don't want that at the bottom. There you go. Neville's childhood had been blighted by Voldemort just as much as Harry's had, but Neville had no idea how close he had come to having Harry's destiny. The prophecy could have referred to either of them, yet, for his own inscrutable reasons, Voldemort had chosen to believe that Harry was the one meant. Had Voldemort chosen Neville, it would be Neville sitting opposite Harry, bearing the lightning-shaped scar and the weight of the prophecy. Or would it? Would Neville's mother have died to save him, as Lily had died for Harry? Surely she would. But what if she had been unable to stand between her son and Voldemort? Would there then have been no chosen one at all? An empty seat where Neville now sat, and a scarless Harry would have been kissed goodbye by his own mother, not Ron's. Again, what I believe about the world of premonitions and prophecies, at least within this world, is they are not rules, they are guidelines to how things would happen. You know, it's like things are more likely to happen because they are prophesied, if that makes sense. You know, because that somebody prophesied it, it's more likely to become true. Something like that. What is certainly... Love how this contrasts with last year's train ride when Harry was embarrassed to be sitting with them. Yeah, that's very true. Butterfly effect, I suppose. Yeah, Harry couldn't possibly know what would have happened. True. Oh, okay. Next page. You all right, Harry? You look funny, said Neville. Harry started. Sorry, Raxpert got you? Raxpert got you? Asked Luna sympathetically. Raxpert. Peering at Harry through her enormous colored spectacles. What? A Raxpert. They're invisible. They float in through your ears and make your brain go fuzzy, she said. I thought I felt one zooming around in here. She flapped her hands. A Raxpert. They're invisible. They float in through your ears and make your brain go fuzzy. That's terrifying. I wouldn't love that. She flapped her hands at thin air as though beating off large invisible moths. Harry and Neville caught each other's eye and hastily began to talk of Quidditch. The weather beyond the train windows was as patchy as it had been all summer. They passed through stretches of the chilling mist, then out into weak, clear sunlight. It was during one of the clear spells, when the sun was visible almost directly overhead, that Ron and Hermione entered the compartment at last. Wish the lunch trolley would hurry up. I'm starving, said Ron longingly, slumping into the seat beside Harry and rubbing his stomach. Hi, Neville. Hi, Luna. Guess what? He added, turning to Harry. Malfoy's not doing prefect duty. He's just sitting in his compartment with the other Slytherins. We saw him when we passed. Harry sat up straight, interested. It was not like Malfoy to pass up the chance to demonstrate his power as prefect, which he had happily abused all the previous year. What did he do when he saw you? The usual, said Ron indifferently, demonstrating a rude hand gesture. Not like him, though, is it? Well, that is. He did the hand gesture again. But why isn't he out there bullying first years? I don't know, said Harry. But his mind was racing. Didn't this look as though Malfoy had more important things on his mind than bullying younger students? Maybe he preferred the inquisitorial squad, said Hermione. Maybe being a prefect seems a bit tame after that. I don't think so, said Harry. I think he's... Before he could expound on his theory, the compartment door slid open again, and a breathless third-year girl stepped inside. I'm supposed to deliver these to Neville Longbottom and Harry Potter, she faltered, as her eyes met Harry's, and she turned scarlet. She was holding out 2 scrolls of parchment tied with a violet ribbon. Perplexed, Harry and Neville took the scroll addressed to each of them, and the girl stumbled back out of the compartment. What is it? Ron demanded, as Harry unrolled his. An invitation, said Harry. Slughorn.
Yeah, he's a Scottish little guy. There you go. Harry, I would be delighted if you join me for a bit of lunch in compartment C. Sincerely, Professor H.E.F. Slughorn.
Who's Professor Slughorn? Asked Neville, looking perplexedly at his own invitation. New teacher, said Harry. Well, I suppose we'll have to go, won't we? But what does he want me for? asked Neville nervously, as though he were expecting attention. No idea, said Harry, which was not entirely true, though he had no proof yet that his hunch was correct. Listen, he added, seized by a sudden brainwave. Let's go under the invisibility cloak. Then we might get a good look at Malfoy in the way. See what he's up to. Good idea. This idea, however, came to nothing. The corridors, which were packed with people on the lookout for the lunch trolley, were impossible to negotiate while wearing the cloak. Harry stowed it regretfully back in his bag, reflecting that it would have been nice to wear it just to avoid all the staring, which seemed to have increased in intensity, even since he had last walked down the train. Every now and then, students would hurtle out of their compartments to get a better look at him. The exception was Cho Chang, who darted into her compartment when she saw Harry coming. As Harry passed the window, he saw her deep and determined conversation with her friend Marietta, who was wearing a very thick layer of makeup that did not entirely obscure the odd formation of pimples still etched across her face. Smirking slightly, Harry pushed on. When they reached compartment C, they saw at once that they were not Slughorn's only invitees, although judging by the enthusiasm of Slughorn's welcome, Harry was the most warmly anticipated. Oh, Slug's gang. Right, the most talented and probably famous students that would create more networking situations for him when they graduate, etc., etc.
Harry, my boy,
said Slughorn, jumping up at the sight of him so that his great velvet-covered belly seemed to fill all the remaining space in the compartment. His shiny bald head and great silver mustache gleamed as brightly in the sunlight as the golden buttons on his waistcoat.
Good to see you. Good to see you. And you must be Mr. Longbottom.
Neville nodded, looking scared. At a gesture from Slughorn, they sat down opposite each other in the only two empty seats, which were nearest the door. Harry glanced around at their fellow guests. He recognized a Slytherin from their year, a tall, black boy with high cheekbones and long, slanting eyes. There were also two seventh-year boys Harry did not know, and squashed in the corner beside Slughorn, and looking as though she was not entirely sure how she had got there, Ginny. Oh, okay, cool.
Now, you know everyone.
Slughorn asked Harry and Neville.
Blaze the Beanie is new year, of course.
Give me some adjectives, please, for Zabini. Maybe do number one, if you're typing it up. Type number one, adjectives for Zabini. Two, well, there's two of these characters, so I guess I can't differentiate that yet, but at least for Zabini. Zabini did not make any sign of recognition or greeting, and nor did Harry or Neville. Gryffindor and Slytherin students loathed each other on principle.
This is Cormac McLaggen. Perhaps you've come across each other. No?
McLaggen, a large, wire-haired youth, raised a hand, and Harry and Neville nodded back at him. Zabini the Zamboni. Zabini, haughty. Haughty. Nodded back at him.
And this is Marcus Belby. Don't know whether...
Belby, who was thin and nervous-looking, gave a strained smile.
And this charming young lady tells me she knows you.
Slughorn finished. Ginny grimaced at Harry and Neville from behind Slughorn's back.
Well, nay, this is most pleasant,
said Slughorn cozily.
A chance to get to know you all a little better. Here, take a napkin. I've packed me own lunch. The trolley, as I remember it, is heavy on licorice ones, and a poor old man's digestive system isn't quite up to such things. Pheasant Belby.
I like him. Zabini is Russian. No, I don't know about that. Doesn't sound like a Russian name, but my desire for Russian accent is too much to disagree. Smooth, confident person. Okay, haughty. McLacken is Russian. Make McLacken Russian. Okay, so it does. I don't get confused too much. Please list your adjectives. Number one is Zabini, two is McLacken, and three is Belby. Okay. So I can find some voices for them. It's just adjectives. That's all I need. Belby started and accepted what looked like half a cold pheasant.
Oh, just telling young Marcus here that I had the pleasure of teaching his uncle, Damocles.
Slughorn told Harry and Neville, now passing around a basket of rolls.
That's outstanding, wizard. Outstanding. And his order of Merlin most well deserved. Do you see much of your uncle, Marcus?
Unfortunately, Belby had just taken a large mouthful of pheasant. In his haste to answer Slughorn, he swallowed too fast, turned purple, and began to choke. McLachlan, confident, pompous. Number 1, haughty, indifferent. Proud. 2, boasting youth, somewhat arrogant. Okay, so there might be a bit close. He's choking.
And up now,
Said Slughorn calmly. Calmly.
and up now.
Slughorn calmly, pointing his wand at Belby, whose airway seemed to clear at once.
Not much of him.
Oh, no, this is Belby. Belby. Nobody gave me any descriptions for Belby, but he was like, how did it describe him? Thin and nervous looking, gave a strange smile. Thin and nervous looking. Not much of him. No, gasped Belby, his eyes streaming.
Well, of course, I dare say he's busy.
Said Slughorn, looking questionably at Belby.
I doubt he invented the Wolfsbane potion without considerable hard work.
I suppose. I don't know, said Belby, who seemed afraid to take another bite of pheasant until he was sure that Slughorn had finished with him. Belby, forgettable. That doesn't really help. Doesn't really help with his voice. I suppose, said Belby, who seemed afraid to take another bite of pheasant until he was sure that Slughorn had finished with him. You do know the real Belby. No, I don't. Isn't he new? The actor of him actually died saving his brother. I don't need to know that. I will not. No, just the character's voice, please. Just adjectives. I don't need anything else. Thank you. He and my dad don't get on very well, you see, so I don't really know much about... His voice tailed away as Slughorn gave him a cold smile and turned to McLachlan instead.
Now you, Cormac,
Said Slughorn.
I happen to know you see a lot of your uncle Tiberius, because hey, there's a rather splendid picture of you two hunting knocktails in, I think. Norfolk.
Okay, let me just see, McLachlan. What is, confident and pompous. Boasting youth, somewhat arrogant, so I don't want him to be too close to Malfoy. So let's do him up. I can't do him Scottish. Let's do him up here. Let's do him up here, shall we? There we go. There we go. Oh yeah, that was fun. That was, said McLachlan. We went with Bertie Higgs and Rufus Scrimger. This was before he became minister, obviously. Something like that.
Ah, you know Bertie and Rufus too,
Beamed Slughorn, now offering around a small tray of pies. Somehow, Belby was missed out.
Nay, tell me.
It was as Harry had suspected. Everyone here seemed to have invited because they were connected to someone well-known or influential. Everyone except Ginny. Zabini, who was interrogated after McLachlan, turned out to have a famously beautiful witch for a mother. From what Harry could make out, she had been married 7 times, each of her husbands dying mysteriously and leaving her mounds of gold. It was Neville's turn next. It was a very uncomfortable 10 minutes, for Neville's parents, well-known Aurors, had been tortured into insanity by Bellatrix Lestrange and a couple of Death Eater cronies. Oof. At the end of Neville's interview, Harry had the impression that Slughorn was reserving judgment on Neville, yet to see whether he had any of his parents' flair. So McLachlan is like a hot guy at school and knows it. Okay, gotcha.
And now,
Said Slughorn, shifting massively in his seat with the air of a compeer introducing his star act.
Harry Potter. Well, to begin, I feel I barely scratched the surface when we met over the summer.
He contemplated Harry for a moment, as though he were a particularly large and succulent
piece of pheasant, and said,
"The chosen one, they're calling you now."
Harry said nothing. Belby, McLagan, and Zabini were all staring at him.
"Of course,"
said Slughorn, watching Harry closely.
"There have been rumours for years. I remember when, well, after that terrible night, Lily, James, and you survived. And the word was that you must have powers beyond the ordinary."
Zabini gave a tiny little cough that was clearly supposed to indicate amused skepticism. An angry voice burst out from behind Slughorn.
Yeah, Zabini.
What is this? Oh, Ginny's saying this.
Yeah, Zabini, because you're so talented at posing.
Oh, dear! Chuckled Slughorn comfortably, looking round at Ginny, who was glaring at Zabini around Slughorn's great belly.
"You want to be careful, Blaze. I saw this young lady perform the most marvellous bat-bogey hicks as I was passing her carriage. I wouldn't cross her."
Zabini merely looked contemptuous.
"Anyway,"
said Slughorn, turning back to Harry.
"Such rumours this summer. Of course, one doesn't know what to believe. The Prophet has been known to print inaccuracies, making mistakes. But there seems little doubt, given the number of witnesses, that there was quite a disturbance at the ministry, and that you were there in the thick of it all."
Harry, who would not see any way out of this without flatly lying, nodded, but still said nothing. Slughorn beamed at him.
"So modest." "So modest. No wonder Dumbledore is so fond. You were there then. But the rest of the story's so sensational, of course. One doesn't know quite what to believe. This fabled prophecy, for instance."
"We never heard of prophecy," said Neville, turning geranium pink as he said it.
That's right.
No,
That's right,
said Ginny staunchly.
Neville and I were both there too. And all this chosen one rubbish is just the Prophet making things up as usual.
"You were both there too, were ya?"
said Slughorn with great interest, looking from Ginny to Neville. But both of them sat calm-like before his encouraging smile.
"Yes. Well, it is true that the Prophet often exaggerates, of course,"
Slughorn continued, sounding a little disappointed.
"I remember dear Gwynnog telling me. Gwynnog Jones, I mean. Of course, captain of the Holyhead Harpies."
He meandered off into a long-winded reminiscence, but Harry had the distinct impression that Slughorn had not finished with him, and that he had not been convinced by Neville and Ginny. The afternoon wore on with more anecdotes about illustrious wizards Slughorn had taught, all of whom had been delighted to join what he called the Slug Club at Hogwarts. Harry could not wait to leave, but couldn't see how to do so politely. Finally, the train emerged from yet another long, misty stretch into a red sunset, and Slughorn looked around, blinking in the twilight.
"Good gracious! It's getting dark already. I didn't notice that they'd lit the lamps. You'd better go and change into your robes, all of you. McLagan, you must drop by, borrow that book on Nogtails. Harry, Blaze, anytime you're passing. Same goes for you, miss."
He twinkled at Ginny.
"Well, off you go! Off you go!"
As he pushed past Harry into the darkening corridor, Zabini shot him a filthy look at Harry that Harry returned with interest. He, Ginny, and Neville followed Zabini back along the train. Okay, I'm gonna end there. Lots happening. I mean, it's of course Rowling is dropping hints of things to come. Yeah, she's setting things up, topple the dominoes as they come up. Does Ron get into the Slug Club for belching slugs? that should be good.
Okay, friends. Again, I won't be back tomorrow. Back on Wednesday. Tomorrow I won't be here, so don't bother logging in, as you won't find me. Thanks for logging in. I hope that gave you an hour and a half of escapism and tapping into something that you love. We're in the 6th book. I was thinking that how nuts is this? The 6th book. I love doing this. This is a lot of fun. Where do you think Slughorn will fall on the teacher scale, from Lupin to Umbridge? I don't think he's an evil person. I think he's got a giant flaw, which is he doesn't care about people. You know, I think he's got an okay heart. Let's say that. But he just doesn't care about people. He cares about himself a lot. But I don't think he's aligned with the Death Eaters or something like that. Your hair looks nice, by the way. Oh, thank you, Anna. Appreciate that. Sorry if I did anyone upset. I don't think you did, Erica. Not at all. And thanks for the fun moments in this readings. Thanks for being part of it. Hope you log in on Wednesday as well. Thank you, John. See you on Wednesday. Take care. Thanks for the stream. It's a lot more fun watching these live than watching the videos. Good. I'm glad you're having fun. Stretch them out so you read on my birthday. 4 months from now? And maybe... Let's see if we get there. I mean, the books are taking a long time, right? These last ones are thick. Very fun for the version that it didn't lag out. Thanks a lot, John, for reading, and everyone for participating. Thanks for logging on, Las Milan. You always assign a genre to every book. What genre do you think this book will be? What genre do I think this book will be? I don't know, because... they've taken so long to set things up that we haven't had any real, action yet. Maybe this will be a political drama. What? Boring. A lot of politics. Thank you for the pick-me-up today. Hope you're doing something fun tomorrow. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you very much. Thank you, John. I injured my toe 10 days ago, and I'm still not back to work, so these readings are definitely a happy part of my day. Oh, I'm sorry about your toe, Rachel. I hope your toe heals very quickly. I'm glad these are helping. Political drama was book 5. Yeah, that can be true, too. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much. I'll see you on Wednesday. Have fun.